passes some basic uh, truthiness tests.
Losing a lot of people because of the internet. And we have to do something. We have to go see Bill Gates and a lot of different people that really understand what's happening. We have to talk to them, maybe in certain areas, closing that internet up in some way. Somebody will say, oh, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. These are foolish people. We have a lot of foolish people. We have a lot of foolish people.
So Google's February 2019 How Google Fights Disinformation document talks about how they team up newsrooms and outside experts to basically determine which content they need to wipe out. That they have partnered with NGOs who set up foundations, and these have been set up by typical corporate news agencies to verify each other's work, and they use the terms that they're going to endorse each other's news coverage. It's clearly set up as a gatekeeping operation, and it's like YouTube has become TheyTube all over again. And they list some of the experts they partner with as being the First Draft Coalition, the Trust Project, and the International Fact-Checking Network. Well, first of all, the Trust Project claims it has this process of 8 key factors and 30 some odd peripheral factors that determine whether or not journalism should be credible and whether or not it's fact-checked, and they're going to self-verify each other between a pool of news agencies to make sure they're up to snuff and that readers could trust them. And this Trust Project, which Google partners with, and in fact it says search engines and social media companies are one of their key external partners. Well, this group was founded by the DPA news agency, The Economist, the Globe and Mail, Hearst Television, the independent journal review Haymarket Media, Institute for Nonprofit News, Italy's La Repubblica, and the Washington Post. So that's 2 firms that go to Bilderberg, and Hearst Television from the Hearst media empire, basically the inventor of yellow journalism, one of the most notorious, obvious offenders of fake news, of made-up narratives, of sensational stories that might have at best a grain of truth, invented to sell papers and sensationalize to the public. A newspaper organization that notoriously had a stake in starting the Spanish-American War and provoking a crisis in Cuba. An organization that, while they may be doing better today, are hardly the roots of truthfulness and trustworthiness in journalism. But I do digress, because Google also talks about their other external partner, the First Draft Coalition, and they too are partnered with a number of news organizations and journalists who've worked for a number of mainstream news outlets, and they are all about this whole narrative of misinformation and disinformation and of the threat of conspiracy theories. The words that Google and other social media outlets are spewing are being fed to them by the research of the First Draft News organization and of other organizations doing similar research. And just one of their documents is 5 lessons for reporting in an age of disinformation, and they have this key graphic that is the centerpiece of their entire article about the trumpet of amplification and how basically conspiracy communities mediate disinformation and untrustworthy information all the way across the internet and all the way up to professional media outlets who don't know any better and aren't trained well enough to disseminate truth from untrustworthy information they found online. Anything conspiratorial is just automatically always fake. Explain how that works. And they go on to argue that even debunking efforts promote these conspiracy theories, and they have to retrain journalists from the ground up to know how to deal with conspiratorial information online so they can shut it down, because it shouldn't be allowed to exist, and it's just a matter of learning how to corral the herds of people online. I mean, come on. Number 5 is just kind of funny. They say they need to inoculate. They're going to vaccinate the information of the web sphere. They need to do more reporting that helps explain the issues that are often subjects of disinformation, campaigns, and they know that the following topics are the most common forms of disinformation, and these need to be countered. Not only the integrity of the election system and attempts to sow hate and division on the basis of various isms and whatnot, but also conspiracies about global networks of power, because they simply don't exist. Very important.
Don't exist.
Very important and powerful people. They don't network.
That's a conspiracy. They don't exist at all.
And they say that.
Wow. Okay.
Hold on. And then after claiming that powerful networks of global elite don't exist, they explain that they're nonprofit, that they are funded, first of all, by their founding partner, Google News Initiative, but also by the James L. Knight Foundation, the Craig Newmark Philanthropies, the Open Society Foundation, which is what Soros, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Was it so anti-scientific that it shouldn't be out there?
The Ford Foundation, the Rita Allen Foundation, and a couple of other people. So they're super unbiased, and they're not part of a global elite network, even though some of the richest and wealthiest individuals on the planet
are the ones
bankrolling this organization.
So do you see how that works? I guess it's easy for them to say that then.
But these are the people who are going to certify what is trustworthy and basically, ultimately, what is allowable speech online.
A community rates low on an information scale when the press, radio, and other channels of communication are controlled by only a few people. The lower your community rates on economic distribution and information scales, the lower it is likely to rate on respect and power scales, and thus to approach despotism.
The second solution focuses on providing context to help people make their own decisions. I love that. That is such an Orwellian phrase. That is such an Orwellian way to put things. So they're going to provide context now to help you make your decision, and the context is going to come in the form of additional information or informational cues. So first off, they've decided to put little blurbs to let you know which governments own which news channels, which I think most people were pretty well aware of that to begin with. So that's going to be the first thing. But they're also going to, it says here, another information panel product launched last year aims to provide additional factual information from outside sources. Additional factual information. That sounds pretty legitimate, right? But then they go on to say the links are going to include credible sources such as Encyclopedia Britannica and Wikipedia. So Wikipedia now, according to Google, is an additional source that provides factual information. Okay, I'm going to get back to this in just a second, but let's talk about Wikipedia for a second. First of all, there's a guy, and I didn't know about this at all until just recently. This just came out in January. Meet the man behind a third of what's on Wikipedia. This guy named Stephen Pruitt has made 3 million edits to Wikipedia.
The Virginia native has made nearly 3 million edits on Wikipedia, written 35,000 original articles.
There's only 5.7 million English Wikipedia articles that exist, and he's edited 3 million of them. He lives at home with his parents, and he sings opera, and he edits Wikipedia. To the point that
Time magazine named him one of the top 25 most influential people on the internet, alongside President Trump, J.K. Rowling, and Kim Kardashian West.
that's how influential this guy is that nobody knows about, who's editing a third of Wikipedia. So
even his day job is research, working in records and information at the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Do your colleagues at work know what you do?
Oh yes.
What do they think of it?
Probably that I'm nuts.
that. Secondly, it came out last decade, and this was really big in the news back in 2007, 2008, that some of the major editors of Wikipedia are the CIA, the FBI, world governments and political parties, and major corporations.
when a tracing program developed at the Santa Fe Institute called Wikiscanner discovered that computers at CIA headquarters had been used to make edits to entries on the U.S. invasion of Iraq and the biographies of former CIA head William Colby and former Presidents Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon. An FBI computer had also been used to edit the entry on the U.S.'s Guantanamo Bay detention facility. Since then, the intelligence agencies have had to camouflage their edits or outsource them to third parties.
And it's pretty easy to do that as far as outsourcing to third parties. You just pay a guy. That's who's making edits to Wikipedia. People who have vested interests in tilting the information towards their point of view. And the Vatican. Oh yeah, also the Vatican. I forgot to mention. So it's to the point that there's even a page on Wikipedia called Conflict of Interest Editing. It says right here, you had everything from the CIA and FBI and Vatican to both the U.S. Democratic and Republican parties to Britain's Labour Party, Britain's Conservative Party, the Canadian government, United Nations, the U.S. Senate, the Department of Homeland Security, the Israeli government, ExxonMobil, Walmart, Dow Chemical, Disney, Nestle, Pepsi, Sony, Fox News, CBS, the Washington Post. I mean, it just goes on and on. These are the people that it's not just some person that's editing Wikipedia. It's the people who have a vested interest in swaying you to their point of view who are editing Wikipedia.
Yeah, well, Wikimedia, the non-profit arm,
Which is about revenues of what?
yeah, they make 75 million. I think was the last year revenue, and
that's all donations.
Donations, yeah. It used to be donations from users. Now it's donations from users and large corporations and governments like the government of Kazakhstan. And, they just take money from anybody.
Well,
no surprise if you look at the list of companies that have donated to Wikipedia, they have pretty nice pages.
And as a matter of fact, Larry Sanger, co-founder of Wikipedia, left the organization specifically due to his concerns about the integrity of Wikipedia. And he said that in some fields and topics, there are groups who squat on articles and insist on making them reflect their own specific biases, and there's no credible mechanism to approve versions of articles. They're rewriting history on this Wikipedia, but this Wikipedia is going to be provided to you now as a additional factual information source.
Until it becomes much more obvious to the world at large this is not a site that we should hold to have any credibility at all, then, there would be one thing if it was just considered a biased source, like just a sort of a trash rag, the bathroom wall of the internet, I like to call it. But it's not. It's considered this sort of holy oracle of truth, and it's really anything but.
And I just think it's really weird because back in the day when I was in grad school, I taught freshman English for a year, and students were not allowed to use Wikipedia as a primary source in any paper that they turned in to me or our department. So it's really bizarre to go from that to now.
What is this doing to our system of information?
Well, it's just, the fact that people take this at face value is really, it's degrading the meaning of just the concept of truth, for one thing, because it's become this consensus thing.
This is also, Wikipedia is also what's feeding all of these quote-unquote smart assistants. When people ask Alexa, for example, of Amazon questions, she's regurgitating to them what comes out of Wikipedia. So this is going to be used now as this official world source of information, and I don't even understand how anyone can take that seriously. And that's before you find out that some of the main editors of Wikipedia, besides Opera Guy over there, are intelligence agencies, governments, religious institutions like the Vatican, and major corporations, all of whom have a vested interest in crafting and presenting their version of events.